This is my favourite place. 374 hectares of countryside, encompassing the former industrial wastelands of the Flashes, the historic woodlands of Marbury Country Park, and the wetlands of Anderton Nature Park. This is the home of some of Cheshire's rarest and most interesting wildlife. Welcome to Northwich Woodlands, a wildlife haven that's nestled into the industrial town of Northwich in West Cheshire. I've been visiting this place since I was a child, but this summer I've delved deeper into what makes this place so special, and I want to share with you what I've discovered. The first place I want to take you to is Ashton's Flash, which is over on the far side of the park, because when I close my eyes and I think of Northwich Woodlands, the first thing I think of is the smell of an unusual orchid. So let's go and take a look. Ashton's Flash lies at the southeast of the site and is one of the few areas in Cheshire that the fragrant orchid can be found. As soon as you get close, you can smell the really rich orangey kind of aroma. These fragrant orchids are a really rare species. It's so special to see them. Not only because they look and they smell gorgeous, but this is one of the only places to see them in Cheshire. And that's because of the unusual conditions which they grow on, which are really uncharacteristic of the county, but more about that later. The clusters of pink flowers bloom in June and July and can be identified by their three-lobed lip, hood and long spur. These unusual orchids fill the flashes with bursts of colour, making them one of my favourite species. This is not the only unusual species to be found on the Flashes. Nestling amongst the fragrant orchids are the pretty white flowers of the marsh helleborines. Like the fragrant orchids, they too love the alkaline soil and thrive on damp ground. They are a native plant and one of about 50 wild orchid species found in the British Isles. Marsh helleborines are now extinct from many formerly occupied inland sites, making Ashton's Flash a really special place. So I noticed that the soil that the plants are grown here is really unusual. It has a chalky, almost toothpaste-like texture, and we know from the plants that are found here that it's highly alkaline. So I think this gives us a clue to the area's history. The history of the area lies under our feet. 300 years ago, this used to be one of Cheshire's largest salt mines, but on the morning of the 6th of December 1880, the landscape changed forever. A huge crack appeared in the earth, swallowing up the land. Water from the surrounding brooks and streams flooded the area. Shops and houses sank, and even the salt works disappeared. Mining on Ashton's had finished forever. This sill box and pipework ramp are relics from the 1940s and a reminder of what came next: the chemical industry. They use the brine in the soda ash process for producing sodium bicarbonate. This left a lime sludge byproduct which needed to be disposed of, and Ashton's was the perfect solution. Bund walls were built to create settlement beds to contain the waste and were used until 1955. Ashton's became a wasteland, and the Tippings reclaimed the land and created the lime beds that we see today. The wasteland has now transformed into a wildlife haven. So the area's industrial history has left a legacy of unique environmental conditions, and these have encouraged an unusual species to the site. Back in May, I was over on Ashton's searching for one of Cheshire's rarest species. Here on the lime beds of Ashton's Flash, hidden amongst the bird's foot trefoil, is one of Cheshire's rarest butterflies. This is the dingy skipper. Despite the name and its dull appearance, this is actually one of the treasures of Northwich Woodlands. This butterfly's distribution in Cheshire is limited to these isolated line beds, and without the unwitting creation of this habitat through the area's industrial past, the dingy skipper wouldn't be found here. The distribution and population trends for this species are in decline, but this site is Cheshire's stronghold for a local biodiversity action plan species, and the dingy skipper is thriving here. Now the next animal I want to show you has a reputation for being a bit dingy and a bit dull, but actually they're really interesting. I was over at Marbury yesterday setting up for collecting moths, so let's go and take a look. So I've come to see Paul Hill, a moth expert. Hi Paul.
Hi Rose.
So have I come to a good place to see moths then?
You have indeed, yes. We've recorded 400 species of mackerel moth here and 400 species of micro moth here.
Wow.
Not every night, that's over about 20 years of recording here, but we'll set the trap up and see what we can catch. So
okay.
We're putting in egg trays in the base of the trap. This provides something for the moths to rest up on when they've gone into the trap. Lots of surface area on them, so if we get 100, 200 moths in here, plenty of room for them to go and not keep flapping around and knocking the scales off each other's wings. So, next thing that goes on the trap is the collar. This is clear perspex, and finally on the top of there, the important bit really, because without any light source you won't get any moths in it.
So we've just got to come back in the morning then?
Come back in the morning and see what we've got.
Right, we'll see you then. Morning Paul.
Morning Rose.
Morning. So was last night a good night for moth catching?
Don't know, it was warm enough, but until we look in the trap we won't know, will we?
Should we take a look
So
then?
look then, yeah. Right.
Let's move this off.
Yeah, if you could take that off, move that out of the way,
Yeah.
and then we literally start going through on the egg trays.
Okay.
So, loads of different egg trays in here. Should be moths resting on quite a lot of them. Quite a lot of common footmen,
Yeah.
which are called common footmen because like the coats the old footmen used to wear on coaches.
Oh, right, okay.
Yeah.
There seems to be loads of
There's
those.
loads of those, yeah. More on the other side. You always get a few sort of that look very, very similar. There's two moths quite similar at the moment called the suspected and the rustic, and there's also one called the uncertain as well.
Right.
Most of them are uncertain, and it doesn't mean I don't know what they are.
That's what
It's
they're called.
just they are called the uncertain, yeah. Ah,
Oh wow.
we have a brighty here. This is one called a large emerald.
Gosh, it's gorgeous, isn't it?
Lovely green colour. That's one that will spend a lot of time in the day just roosting up in trees. So bright green, looks very bright on the egg tray, but when that's on a leaf on a tree or in a shrub, you're hardly going to notice that at all. Let's see if we can get
Right at the bottom.
right at the bottom. We've got one of the jewels, which is the elephant hawk moth.
Wow.
There we are.
Another one that looks really brightly coloured.
Brightly coloured. Lays its eggs on the plants of roseberry willow herb, so it's wonderfully camouflaged when it's egg
Right.
laying.
Yeah.
Elephant hawk moth.
Right, Paul, so we've gone through the trap now.
Yep.
How many did we manage
Well,
to
scores on the doors today. There's got 30 species of moth in the trap today, and there's over 120 moths in there. So quite a good catch,
Yeah.
and all the information will obviously help with the management of the park.
Great. It's been really interesting. I'm quite surprised to see how beautiful some of the moths are.
Yeah.
And one even wants to come home
Come
with
with
me,
you,
which
yeah,
is
new
good,
brooch.
so-
Yeah.
Right, thanks for all
Okay,
your help,
right,
Paul.
thanks, Rose.
Cheers. Next we go into the centre of Northwich Woodlands, to Anderton Nature Park, to see another flying species that has found its home here. This is Hayden's Pool, the best place to come and watch sand martins. Sand martins are part of the family belonging to swallows and martins, the hirudines. They are a summer visitor to the site, coming to Hayden's Pool from Northern Africa to breed. They feed whilst on the wing, picking up invertebrates off the water. The birds have been encouraged here by this artificial sandbank, built here 3 years ago. The birds fly into the holes, excavate the soft sand and build burrows to nest in. The birds used to nest here by the mere at Marbury Park, but the sandstone is now crumbling, making it an unsuitable nesting site. Thanks to hard-working volunteers and funding from Chester Zoo, the birds now have a new home. This is the 3rd year now that the bank has been established, and this summer over 100 sand martins have been observed here. The first pair of birds fledged their young successfully in May, and have since been joined by many more birds prospecting for nest sites for their second brood. The birds have now excavated nearly all of the holes for nesting sites, and the birds can be seen popping in and out all day long. A wonderful sight. I hope you'll agree that Northwich Woodlands is full of exciting wildlife. I know that I love it just as much as I did when I was a child, and I hope there are many more happy memories of this beautiful place to come.